Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Bonnie Clearwater. I'm the director and chief curator of the Museum of Contemporary Art. Thank you. And I'm so glad to see so many of you gave up an absolutely perfect day in Miami to sit in this cold. This is actually our storage. We don't have an auditorium, as many of you know. To hear this incredible talk by David Stark. David Stark is truly a genius and a creative individual who is the top designer for events around the world. And his clients are really the who's who, from leading Hollywood actors, Glenn Close, to top performers, Beyonce, television personalities, Jon Stewart and Martha Stewart. God, that must be intimidating. I mean, doing something for Jon Stewart, I mean. She actually had him design her nephew's wedding. Think about that. So you could tell in what high esteem David is held in that world. He's worked for major corporations such as Target, Huffington Post, and top cultural institutions such as the Metropolitan Opera. And from here, he goes to New York. Tomorrow, the Metropolitan Opera has its big gala on its stage, and David is the maestro for that night. MoMA, and of course, last year for MoCA's 15th anniversary celebration, David did the first major event in Miami for a cultural institution for our 15th anniversary celebration. The pictures of that event are in the book that it's being released. It's not even released yet. We're the first ones to get the book, by the way. So you saw it at MoCA first, all right? When we were planning our 15th anniversary celebration, we really wanted to have something nobody has seen here in Miami. We also wanted it to be incredibly creative. We wanted it to have the elements of MoCA's amazing history, 15-year history, and we also didn't want it to cost anything. How about that for a tall order? Well, we were very fortunate that David wanted the challenge and exceeded all of our expectations. He orchestrated an incredible event for us. And I use the word orchestrate deliberately because he coordinated a very large team of professionals with great precision and planning, and the results were amazing, I think. The fact we had all these artists from all over the world who have been part of our history were here, collectors from all over the world, incredible chairs, including Ray Allen and Alan Yarkin, who was a co-chair, and Joanne Cates, who was a chair, and Janice Lipton, who was part of the event committee, and my amazing staff who met this challenge as well. It's fitting that we have David here today because the exhibition that is up now is Pivot Points, 15 years in counting, MoCA's exhibition of its 15th anniversary collection. The 15th anniversary was so lucrative for us. We're going to keep celebrating it until we're 20. And we took the occasion of the 15th anniversary to approach major collectors around the world and the artists who are so much part of our legacy, our history, to give major works to the collection. And what was truly extraordinary was to see how the artists were part of our history, wanted to be a major part of our legacy by donating big time to the collection, and you get to see that today. David will, after his presentation, be available to sign books in the lobby, and the books are available in our shop. Again, you are the first to get them. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce David Stark. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So, Bonnie, first of all, thank you for such a beautiful introduction, and thank you all. I want to reiterate that it's so nice of you to come on what is, the most perfect beach day, and so I'm honored to be with you all. And I'm honored to be here today. The project that we did together with Bonnie and the incredible team here means a lot to me, partly because, you know, I am a designer and I am a party planner and I am a business person and I am a lot of different things that I wear hats on, but at the end of the day, when I really think about what I am, I think about being an artist. And people often ask me, first and foremost, well, how did you even get into all of this? And when I went to art school, I went to RISD, I studied painting, and I had no idea at that time that this was a this. I didn't even know you could have a job doing this. And so in a weird way, I kind of invented what I do as an artist because I didn't, you know that there was, I guess I had no boundaries on it. And so the way I got into it, first and foremost, was when I first moved to New York, I worked at a restaurant. I was a waiter. And I was a really, 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 really good waiter. And when I was, 19 or 20, it was cute and it was a lot of fun and it was an instant social life and it was exciting. And I realized that if I didn't do something to change that, I was going to be the really, really good 75-year-old waiter. Which, and everybody every time the hot new restaurant opened, they would invite me to work there, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with working in a restaurant or being a great waiter. It's a super noble profession. I just knew that personally, I didn't have, aspirations to own a restaurant. I mean, I liked dealing with people, and I liked being in the service industry, and I recognize now, 20 years later, that everything that I learned as a waiter is what I actually apply to the service that I run now. And it's about juggling, it's about making people feel at home, it's about making them feel that they're having the best time. It's about always thinking ahead of what their needs might be, making them feel that nothing is a problem. And that aspect of what I do, even though I am that artist and that designer, that service aspect is something that's so important to us as a company, and it's something that we never forget about. And to back it up a second, the way that I got into party land in the first place was working with flowers. So my solution to getting out of waiting on tables was to work with flowers. It was this creative solution to having a side job to support the painting. And it was dealing with color, and it was dealing with texture, and it was dealing with all this stuff that kind of had a similarity to painting. But I found very quickly that I liked it better than actually making a painting. When I was in my studio, I would have a telephone in one hand and I'd have a paintbrush in the other, and I realized that I didn't want to be alone in a studio by myself. And so what I really wanted to do was actually be working with people. And so I'd call anybody that would pick up the phone while I was making a painting, that would talk to me the entire time I was painting. And ultimately, that kind of communal experience is what I really seek out now. Very often people will say to me, well, do you still make paintings? And I don't. And I almost always get the same response, which is, oh, that's too bad. But I don't think it's too bad at all, because I make really cool stuff with lots of people, and we have fun. And my paintings don't necessarily include paint, although sometimes they do. But they really include the world of materials. And so I'm going to give you an abridged sort of version of how I got to where I got to. I mean, obviously I didn't go from making a cocktail table arrangement to some of the installations that we do now overnight. But what I realized at a certain point was that flowers were one of the tools in the toolbox. It wasn't the right tool for every single thing. And it was, it's like getting dressed in the morning. Some days it's 98 degrees and you're wearing flip-flops and a tank top. And some days it's 22 degrees and you're wearing 3 sweaters and boots and a hat. And both of those outfits are right. And so it's about thinking about what is the right occasion, what is the right scenario, what is the right particularity. And when I started to realize that I didn't have to always do things the same way every time, the world of opportunities really opened up. In my floral career, at some point in time I was invited by the New York City Opera to present a proposal for their gala. And their chair lady was Carolyn Rome, who is a very notable floral person in her own right. And it was really a kind of a mind-blowing experience for me. She probably has no idea who I am and remember this at all, but it was a really meaningful thing for me that she took a look at our portfolio and she said, well, there's no question that you don't make the most beautiful flower arrangements, but this evening has nothing to do with flowers. And that, you know, I tried to keep my game face on, but I was really, you know, kind of floored by that statement. And their version of Macbeth was set in industrial turn-of-the-century England, and it was a really dire production. And so the challenge was, how do you extend the drama of what's going on stage to the party without creating a really depressing party? But how, you know, we didn't want to walk out of that theater and then go into balloons and butterflies and cupids and Pegasus. So that was really the first time that we had to come up with a brain teaser of, you know, how do you address that? And so we worked really hard at that, and we were lucky because we were rewarded the job. And that turned out very well, and it started the process to think about, well, how could an event really be more like a happening? How could it really be more like an art piece that people participate in? How could it be less about decorating a room and more about creating an experience? And so with that in mind, I'll launch into some images. And if we want to bring the lights down. And also some game rules. Anybody can ask a question at any time. So we should, you know, act like we're all in a really big living room and we're all friends, and anytime somebody wants to ask something, you know, don't feel like you need to be formal about it. So one of the largest projects that I do is for the Robin Hood Foundation. And if you're unfamiliar, like the tale, the folks take from the rich and they give to the poor. And it's a New York-based organization that fights poverty. And it's a seated dinner for about 4,200 people. It takes place at the Convention Center in New York. And that's very much like, you know, putting lipstick on a pig. And, but it's fun, and, you know, it's a great challenge. And I'm always up for that challenge. And this would be a great, great example of what happens, you know, on the client side. The client says to me, we want the decor, we want what happens to be about what the organization does. So we want what the Robin Hood Foundation is about to be implicit in the decor, which is kind of a hard thing because fighting poverty is not glamorous. So, or said differently, poverty is not glamorous. So oftentimes we talk about not overstating, you know, there's a fine line between pushing poverty into, you know, like jazz hands poverty. So it doesn't want to be, you know, too over the top in its send-up, but it wants to be emotional, and in like any fundraiser, the goal is to make as much money as possible. The idea behind this project was to go out to corporations in America and get all donated items that the people in their programs needed. So what I did to start this research project is I talked to the program directors and I said, well, what do your people need? And in many cases, you know, it was pretty self-explanatory. They needed food, they needed shelter, they needed clothing. But in other cases, it was actually quite surprising and touching. One of the things that lasts with me most is they needed alarm clocks. Now, we all take for granted that we have an alarm clock, and what does that do for you? That allows you to get to work on time. It allows you to go to a job interview on time. But if you don't have an alarm clock, and you don't have the money for an alarm clock, it's very difficult to actually do those things. So what we did ultimately was we got these donations from companies like Nike, companies like Ralph Lauren, companies like JCPenney, and we built the decor entirely out of them. And then after the event, it was disassembled and it was actually given to the programs. And so the design challenge there is, how do you make things of scale without destroying them? How do you not screw into them, or nail into them, or tape them, or glue them, or shred them apart? And so we had to come up with inventive ways to do that. This is showing the process of a 30-foot tornado made out of 10,000 Nike sneakers. And the structure, the whole thing, that round truss is on a motor. And that motor allows it to be lowered so we can work on the floor, then lift it up point by point until we get it 30 feet in the air. The structure on the inside is a fishing net. And so we would take the laces of the shoes, we would tie them together, we would put a clip on them, we would then hang it on the net, we would cover the whole thing, we'd lift it up. After we were done, we dropped the whole thing down, we took them off, we put them in their boxes, we sent them out. This house is basically a giant bookshelf. It's filled with towels and blankets and clothing, and the smoke that's coming out of the chimney is socks. The sign that says survival is made out of first aid kits. That cityscape you see in the background, that's made out of cans of food. The pencil is made out of thousands of pencils. We used carpet tape to affix them, and then right after we could take the pencils right back off and box them. The bar graph that's showing reading statistics is made out of books. So those books went to libraries and schools after. We thought, well, we can make a ladder out of pennies, and then the pennies can just go to the program. This giant chair. So this is a cool one, the bottles of water. You know those, in New York, we have the corner bodega, and the corner bodega has potato chips that are on a sort of a rack with little clips. So we use those clips to kind of hold around the neck of the water bottle, and then right after we could take them off and box them up and send them out. Instead of flowers on the dining tables, we had computers. And those computers had floral arrangements as photographs, but they also had other messaging. But all of these computers went out and to the programs after. And something of this scale, we have 425 tables times 2 computers apiece. It actually makes quite a big difference for schools and libraries and organizations. We also throw a mean bar mitzvah. So I never wanted to be one of those designers or artists. There's a lot of people in my world who say, well, I only do corporate events, or I only do. But, the bar and bat mitzvah is actually like a really wonderfully creative moment. And I find that there's really good dialogue between the corporate stuff I do, the fundraising stuff that I do, the social stuff that I do. And I tend to create relationships with people. And so when I create a relationship with a person, I never want to say, well, I'm only going to do this for you, but I'm not going to do this milestone for you. This was a book lover's bat mitzvah. This is actually a trompe-l'oeil graphic that was hiding a balcony. That's the DJ booth. That's in a space in New York City called 583 Park Avenue. Instead of just a printed table number, it was a book with the number cut from the book page. We also do a lot of corporate work. I have had a very many year love affair with the Target Corporation, and years ago, we sort of invented what has really become kind of a standard in the retail world of the pop-up store. And this is one that we did last year in Canada. Target, well, I think they're opening stores left and right in Canada right this minute. But this was done about a year earlier where, it was to try to hype up what was going to be happening now. And so this is when Jason Wu did a partnership with them. And so what's really cool about this is it's kind of like building a little mini company from scratch. So, you're creating the branding, you have to find a location, you're inventing a store concept, we're training staff, we have to do the cash system. It's kind of like a big project, and the goal is always to make it look easy. And to also get that kind of line going outside. So, the fabulous thing is that people were coming far and wide to wait online. We learned some lessons. When we did the Missoni partnership in New York, the response was so unprecedented around the country and in New York, and the lines were out of control, and the grabbing and buying everything and putting it on eBay, that we decided to try a new thing here where we gave out tickets that only allowed people to buy 2 items apiece. And so it was a much more civilized experience. And that way, because really what was happening is it was really all eBay. People would go and they would buy the entire shelf and then they put it on eBay. So now what we really wanted to do was kind of control this so that the consumer really could have a great shopping experience and people could really participate with getting and feeling and being part of the product. That dog has the biggest entertainment rider in show business. It's like a superstar. That's a print on, oh, you mean his eye? Yeah, that's paint. We also did a mini exhibit there. Because Target and the culture of Target was very new to the Canadian audience, we also wanted to educate them about what the Target partnerships were all about. So this was an exhibition of some examples of key products that over 15 years of designer partnerships have been done. So, we have Missoni, we've got that pair of scissors was done by Philippe Starck. So trying to educate the fact that design and that kind of partnership is not just this new one-off thing that Target is doing now, but is really part of a long history of design, fascination and exploration. Yeah.
That's another nice connection between you and Mocha. We did a show, it was in '99, called Design Matters.
Mm.
And it was looking specifically at the fact that high design was being marketed to the masses, and it was part of it.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, now it's become this thing that, so many companies are involved with. But, I actually think that that's a really good thing to sort of up the ante on design. That's great. So, our whole kind of world here was about the special delivery coming from Target to Toronto. So this space, I've never seen this anyplace else in the world, but in Toronto, they have all of these temporary buildings that they put up that become showrooms for condo sales. And then when they're done, they're just left there vacant, and there's no real usage for them because they're not really built to last forever. So it was actually really easy to find a location for this because there's a million of these all over the place. Last year, after doing so many years of pop-up stores for other people and figuring out how to elevate their product, and the thing that's really fascinating about that as an event planner and as a designer is that when you create a retail store that's a permanent retail store, it has to be very neutral because it always needs to accept and make all product at any time for years and years look good. But when you do a temporary experience, you can know exactly what your product is going to be, what the colors are, what the sizes are, how much of it you're going to get, and you can specifically design something that will only work for that product. And so that's great fun as a designer, and it's not really what retail can be because it has to be ever-changing. After spending so much time designing those environments for others, I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to try as an experiment to design my own with the product that I make myself? So we were calling this an ambush. We took over a buddy of mine's store in Nolita in New York, and the store was called House Interior, and for the month of February, we took all of her stuff out of there, and we transformed the store into our world. Her staff ran the store. We used her website platform as a device to sell things on the internet. But we basically created something that was one part gallery, one part party, and one part retail experience. And it was great fun. So everything at Woodshop was inspired by the woodworker's atelier. So it was either made out of wood or it was inspired by tools or things you'd find in the store. So for me, I like these kinds of projects too because I set my own rules. It's like creating my own art installation. And that's harder for me in some ways. When I have a client that says, do whatever you want, I don't have a single solitary idea. So I need things to react to. I need to be able to hear, you hate the color yellow and you love French, Polynesian, whatever. I need something to react to. But when I do it myself, I have to become my own client. So I have to create the rules. So that was like a little bit of a longer process, but it was a really good educational one for me. So a lot of the products we created were silly. They were wooden cakes or they were wooden telephones. And some of them were useful. They were napkins. I've actually been dying to see, what's the new hotel? I guess it's not a new hotel, but it's a newly redesigned hotel. I think it's on Indian Point that Roman and Williams did. Does anybody know what that is? They have like a little bar in the backyard. Huh? Okay, so Roman and Williams went in one day and they bought all the napkins, and they were going to do something with them at the hotel. So I've been meaning to go in there and see what it was that they did with them. I can't imagine that they're using them as napkins, so maybe they sewed them together and did something else, but.
Did you use any of these things in previous events, or what do you do with the things that you make for events? Do you later sell them? Do you keep them in a big giant warehouse somewhere?
Well, I only wish I had a really big giant warehouse. Well, a lot of times the client keeps them. Every so often I save a special thing that I really love as a memento. We give, I would say, 80 or 90% of the things that we make for projects that our clients don't give to an organization in New York called Materials for the Arts, where if you are a registered non-for-profit organization, you can go there and shop and get anything you want for free. And so school groups, theater companies, dance groups. It's in Queens, in New York. No, it's in its own kind of big warehouse. It was started in the 70s. It's called Materials for the Arts. It was started in the 70s. It's a really great organization. It was, when New York City had no money at all and all of the arts funding was being cut. And so Harriet, the woman that runs and founded the organization, she invented this whole thing, and she got a little bit of seed money for the city, and it became a way to supplement all of the public school art programs that were being cut. And, so today, my mother taught in public schools in New Jersey for all of her life, and she had a $250 a year materials budget, which, obviously doesn't go very far. So organizations like that became really critical and remain really critical for there to be arts education that's pretty expansive and is not so limited to what you can get. It's really something that could be great in any city, anywhere.
We have something like that here.
Oh, do you?
Ocean Bank.
Uh-huh.
And it's a fund that puts together, corporations donate extra supplies, or when they're getting rid of computers that they want to upgrade or
Uh-huh.
whatever, they send it to this place, and then teachers can come in, not necessarily just art teachers,
Yeah.
but any teacher can come in and take
That's
what they
great.
need.
Yeah, it's really great. We give a lot to them, so. So one of the things that was really good about this, when I do these projects for other people, I'm not so involved in picking out the product. Sometimes they'll ask me my opinion, but this was a case where I had to become the buyer and the designer and the merchandiser. And I made some mistakes. There were things that I thought were going to be really popular and great that weren't, and then the things that I didn't think were going to be popular were. I was really dying to make wooden nickels. I thought they were going to be great, but not that many other people did. But people like this. We made a lot of things because it was in February. We made a lot of things for Valentine's Day, so that was a popular one where you can carve your sweetheart's name. And this is a really cool museum in Miami. So we started a couple of years ago documenting the behind the scenes. And I found in many respects that those shots are as interesting and sometimes more so than the finished product. And one of the things that I like about showing them is that my world is really about process. And as I mentioned earlier, my team and my community is really, really central to what I do. And Bonnie, you were so kind to call me a genius earlier, but the truth is it's my team that's really, the talent and is geniosity a word? Is the geniosity behind it? But I could never do what I do without the team that I have. And these photographs, which document the process to get to the finish line of the 15th anniversary gala that we did here, kind of show what it takes to get the job done.
How many team members are there?
I have 32 people that work full-time in New York, and then 65 additional freelancers that we bring into projects. So one of the fun things is that Bonnie, remember all the trials that we had to make with what kind of glue works? So any museum environment keeps the air regulated at a certain level to protect the artwork. And so, you think you can just use any kind of adhesive, but a lot of adhesives won't work because of the humidity or lack thereof in the air, depending on what the material is. Bonnie, you can probably speak better to that than I. Or they curl up. Okay, so this is a wonderful example, and one of the reasons why I love it so much is it again speaks to the philosophy of, if we're going to make an event, how do we make what the experience is about, or what the organization is about, implicit in the decor? And again, this is not about decorating the room. It's about, bringing to life the history of 15 years, the magic of what this institution and all of the talented people that are involved, the amazing artists that have been part of the shows here. And how do you do it in a way that is not focusing too specifically on one show or one set of artists or one time period? And so we started to think about all of the graphic materials that are historic to the museum. So that's every postcard and every invitation for an exhibit, and the catalogs and reviews and all of the ephemera that basically identify that history, but you come in the back door telling the story. And if we cut it all up and we put it together in a big crazy quilt, it creates an abstraction that is both specific but also takes you to a different visual place. And so what you're seeing here are the walls of all of the galleries. The incredible show that's out, that's subdivided into different gallery rooms now. You've probably been here at different times where the space configuration is different. So for the event, it was actually one huge rectangle which functioned as the dining room. And so all of the walls, floor to ceiling, were upholstered in 6-inch squares cut from all of the different materials. The centerpieces were triangles that had open catalogs, open to specific pages. So they always provided at each table a different viewpoint of a different exhibit or a different visual. That was the stage as the focal point. And the performance artist Ragnar performing. And even things like the graphics that we use, so a menu, it doesn't have to be a rectangle. So if that triangle is important to us, how do we extend those details into all of the various things that we have there? My goal is to have everything that needs to be at the party not be conventional or standard. I like to show this project because this is also another funny project that I do. It's really stepping out of my box in terms of who the client is, but I've done it for about 5 or 6 years. It's the Global Volatility Summit. So it's really like a convention of sorts and in the financial industries, and it's definitely not like my normal place to be, but my client happens to be a super aggressive, inventive, out-of-the-box thinker, and his whole starting point is, guys in the financial industries are boring. They need to be shaken up. And so his whole thing is he wants every year for it to be so surprising and so radical that they will always want to come, and that it will wake them up from what the everyday studying of statistics is all about. So we focus on, is anybody familiar with what volatility investing is all about? I'm not going to go like super deep because frankly, I don't even really understand it myself. But the whole idea is that there are tail events in the world that change the economies of the world. And a tail event, if you're unfamiliar, is something that is so major that the world economy shifts. So that could be the stock market crash of 29? Or it could be in the 16th century when there was a tulip crisis where the world economy was based upon the sale of tulips, and when that price got inflated, the world economic bubble burst. And so this is also a funny one because a lot of the tail events are kind of disastrous in their world problems. So a couple of years ago, the event actually took place on the morning that there was the tsunami in Asia. And so it was really poignant and awful because that's the kind of tail event that actually shifts world economies. But in this particular year, we didn't have something like that. But we did look to what were all the things of that year that could have been in that category. So it's a branding exercise. It's a stage set. It's decor. It's an art installation. It's a lot of things wrapped up in one. Those are some carrier pigeons. But I really do think about it a lot like theater or a lot like a stage set. And the guests are actors in that play. This is what we just did for this year. It's always a brain teaser of how to come up with a new idea. So I started to think about games of chance and skill, and how could we repurpose the visuals for that for them. No, but it does kind of look like him. It's all day, so it starts at breakfast, then they have lunch, then they have cocktails. This is a project we do for Benjamin Moore for DIFA's design, Dining by Design. And so it starts as, the idea is that you're creating a table for this dining experience, but the truth is you're really creating an environment. So this is like the magic of being inside the sketchbook. This, Benjamin Moore came out with a color line called Color Stories, so that's where this came from. We also do weddings. This past summer, we did a big wedding in Detroit. And you know, everything from the print materials to what the bouquet is for the bride are part of that process and part of that planning experience. And this is an invitation I'm very happy with. It is fun. You know, I will say it's very hard to find clients that want to do things like that. So, you know, it may look like it's all just so easy and just miraculously happens, but I have to really like sell really hard to get people to agree to this stuff. So. So this is like my dream fairy tale wedding. I found somebody who shared the dream. They have a really incredible collection of Lalande sculpture in the garden as well. This was their home, yeah. So, you know, it's fun for me because flowers really were the first love. So, you know, it took me many, many years to shake off the word florist off the back of my name. And now we do these parties and people say, well, who does your flowers? They're so beautiful. And when we say, well, we do, they're so, I often don't think they believe me. And this is the cover of my new book.
Did you design the tablecloth as well?
No, that's, it's Porto fabric from France, so, yeah.
David, you saturate color. You do a lot.
I like color, but I never wear color.
With no art, I mean, on every design fashion show, all the artists are always in black or gray.
Well, I feel like I'm like a big billboard when I'm wearing color. But I like when other people wear color. I wish I could wear color. This is the Metropolitan Opera's season opener last season, just to show the complexity of what we do and how we do it. And this install, I think, was like at 4 in the morning. Hmm? I don't know that we had any chandeliers here. in this okay, let's see. So again, you know, I like working with theatrical companies because it's a really great challenge to figure out how to extend that drama of what's going on the stage without, you know, trying to copy it, which is an insult to the production designers. So, you know, my goal is always to kind of feel the production and then have my own interpretation that has a relationship and then get, you know, everybody involved to agree. The opera was The Elixir of Love, and it was set in, you know, kind of like a Tuscan world. It's sort of a comedy, the opera, so it's pretty light, and I wouldn't say that that's always the case with the season openers. Sometimes they're crazy heavy, but this was a beautiful theme to work with. And it's fantastic because they also do free opera on the plaza that night. Sure.
How you create the concept and how it kind of like goes to production.
Sure. So in a case like this, which is not always the same case with every project because here's a specific production I'm reacting to, right? So I asked to see the stage set. I asked to see the costumes. I asked to see the research that the opera and the production designers are looking at to develop what their production is. If there is a video or a rehearsal that I can see, I like to go do that. I meet with Peter Gelb, the director of the opera, to find out what's in his head. I often meet with other people from his team to find out what's in their head. You know, some operas don't have a major set and they put more effort into the costumes. So, you know, there was a production last year that was much more about the costuming, and for that, they were really studying paintings at the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, to get period costumes. And so I spent a lot of time with that team looking at those costumes to figure out what was the right thing. And, you know, they get very specific. I mean, I might use a piece of architecture as a sample, and they will say, well, that cornice could never have been used at that time period. I'll be like, how'd you even notice that? So. But then ultimately we make drawings and we make floor plans, and it's very much like architecture or interior design. I mean, we have to do a lot of drawings, we have to do a lot of scale plans, we have to really work on the budget. You know, nobody ever says to me, here's a blank check, spend as much money as you want. And obviously, you know, there are some people here that, or organizations or companies that have deeper pockets than others. One of the things that I'm really proud about with the work is that sometimes the budget is really tight and sometimes it's not, and you might not really know the difference. It's more about how is that design and how is that installation conceptually really carried out. And so, you know, this whole show, if you will, is filled with things that are on the higher and the lower end of the spectrum. But I don't know that you can really discern a difference there because it's about what is the right thing for that event. But the budget is really key. I mean, any idea that we present, I have to know is affordable, and is not just affordable, but is doable in the amount of time that we have to work on something. And, you know, sometimes I go into places where I have 6 hours to install, and, you know, I might have a great idea, but I also know that I can't pull it off in 6 hours, so that great idea goes in a folder for some other time. And then, so we create a whole presentation and we present it, and every once in a blue moon somebody says, great, I'll see you on May 12th, but mostly there's a lot of back and forth because it's a collaboration. And we keep honing in on it till we get to the finish line. We'll make samples, we'll do tests like we talked about with making sure that, you know, the paper is gonna stick to the wall in the temperature, things like that. Yeah.
When you sketch the first idea,
Mm-hmm.
do you really go into detail or you leave place for imagination for the client to feel that he's on board with the design?
That's a really good question. Mostly really what I start to do is I brainstorm with my team. All of the ideas come out of us brainstorming as a group. Every once in a while I might wake up in the middle of the night with like Shazam, that's the idea. But most of the time it's a group brainstorm, and most of our clients want to see a pretty well-baked idea before we present it to them. And that well-baked idea means, you know, does it work in our budget, and does it answer our needs and our desires and our goals? And, you know, we're very goal-oriented, so really we start with what's the goal. Sometimes the goal is really easy. You know, when somebody's getting married, they're getting married. We want to make that as lovely as possible. With a fundraising event, you know, an implicit goal is that we want to make as much money as possible. But there's always other goals. It's about, you know, maybe it's about cultivating a new audience. It's about projecting a certain image. So we think about the goals, the budget, and how the ideas relate to that. And we're presenting things that are essentially pretty baked ideas, but with the openness for dialogue and conversation. And as I said earlier, where I don't like and don't do well when somebody says, do whatever you want, the truth is that we're having a lot of conversations and a lot of meetings with our client and sort of communally working on these ideas before we get to the place that we're presenting them. So I'm never just inventing something blindly with the hope that people like it when we present it to them, because I've brought them into the process earlier. Does that answer the question for you? And frankly, the clients that come to us and that we work well with, they come to us because they want to be part of that creative journey. I mean, there are definitely jobs out there where, you know, they want to pick centerpiece style A, B, and C from the J. Crew catalog of centerpieces and cross it off their to-do list. And that's not a wrong thing, it's just a different thing. And it's just not, you know, I'd make more money if I did that, but. You know, I liken what I do, you know how moving day is the crappiest day? You're unloading boxes and you're carrying a lot of stuff. And if I can't stand back with the team and the client and say, wow, look at what we created, then all it really was moving day. And, you know, while I am a business person too, and of course I want to make money, I really want it to be a wonderful, lasting, emotional, and creative experience that will be remembered for the rest of my or our life. And so I really avoid moving day because it's a lot of truck packing and unpacking. And you see how big this is. It was like 1,200 people, so you see how many trucks you can imagine how many trucks we unpacked. This was a cool project we did last year. It was the 50th anniversary of the State Department's Art and Embassies program in Washington, D.C. And this is a cool thing, too, because how do you celebrate 50 years of the government's promotion of American art in a way that you know, honors the big variety of who those artists are? And the thing that people don't really understand about Art and Embassies is that it is not paid for by us, the taxpayers. It's all privately funded, and this event was as well. This was at the National Portrait Gallery in DC. So you're seeing the process of us building a lot of stuff. So not only did we make things, but we found a lot of other artists in the world to bring in as collaborators. So this big globe was being made by a woman from Philadelphia named Ish Knits, who is she's a knit bomber. So she goes out into the world and she bombs things on the street. And this was a 20-foot tall viewing platform that we made out of thousands of Post-it pads. So this is another example where we went out to corporations and had them make donations and make things out of their product. And then it went to materials for the arts after. Sometimes I wonder, like I still, when I think about this project, I can't believe the National Portrait Gallery allowed me to make this. So that 20-foot viewing platform, like you could climb up the stairs and hang out there. You know, to this day, I can't even imagine how that got done, but it did. This was a pyramid made out of 1 million donated crayons from Crayola. So that's that viewing platform that you see in the distance. And there were different artists involved. Jenny Holzer did a big piece, and Nick Cave performed with his sound suits, which was really, truly incredible. He had a 50-person marching band from local schools. It was really kind of an incredible event. And it's a really big space, so I'm pretty proud of how we were able to fill it. And I'm kind of in love with Nick Cave. So this was the Whitney Gala. I'm going to scroll through fast, but what you're seeing is decor made entirely out of tape on the walls. And this was actually supposed to be in one of the piers in New York, but it was happening right when Sandy hit. And so we had to change our plan, and we had to push this back several months, and we lost all the materials that we had purchased for it. So I had to come up with a quick solution for how to make this cool party in the museum with no money and no time. And so basically, we drew on all the walls with tape. Thanks. A recent collaboration with Prabal Gurung and Target. We created a giant carnival. Now, this was the space we were supposed to do the Whitney in, which is a giant hangar. But it was really fun to make a huge carnival with rides, and there was a little pop-up store inside that you could buy the product.
You have too much fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's stressful. Well, you know, it's the best of everything. I mean, there's nothing in the world that's not stressful, right? But I am very lucky that I do get to have a lot of variety in my life.
How long does it take to take it all down?
Well, coming down is faster than going up. We probably took this down in 2 days, but normally we would have 4 hours.
David, haven't you also designed dishes for West Elm?
Yeah, I've done some product design for West Elm, and I'm starting to do some other things too. I mean, the West Elm collections, they were full-on collections, so there were dishes and other things, and it was, I mean, that was another example where I was really stumped when I started, and then I had to figure out, okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm making it for a party. So I'm going to decide, okay, it's a Mediterranean theme, it's going to be blue and white, it's going to be on the water. I had to kind of invent a scenario because when I was left to my own devices of do anything, I really was stumped. Another project with Target, they're a really incredible company because not only do they give back to the community, but they give 5% of their income, which at a company that scale is something like $2 million a week. So it's not 5% of their profits, it's 5% of their income. And that often goes to museums and cultural institutions, but they have now taken on reading from K through 3rd grade as a pet project. And this was a project we did to kick this off. We created this 16-foot sculpture out of 15,000 books on the steps of the public library, and they were all donated to libraries after. And we had a big ribbon cutting with celebrities and book readings inside. This was inside the library where all the kids went after. I'm really proud because we got him the night before the Oscars where he was nominated for a Best Actor award. And he was super. This was another project at the National Portrait Gallery. It was the recent inaugural for Obama. And it was with Google. I'm mostly showing it to you to show you how many people can pack into a tight space. We locked the fire marshal in a broom closet. And this is the last project. This is at the Armory. And this was for the Jewish Museum. And this is another good example where there's a tight budget and a huge volume of space to fill. And so I figured, well, what if it was like being inside a glass of champagne? I like to use materials also that have a bad connotation. So like the kids' balloon party is seen as sort of not chic enough for the crowd, but I like to use the thing that people think is not chic and actually make it cool. And I'll never do it again. We hired a company called Balloon Saloon, and the owner of Balloon Saloon is a little on the nutsy side.
David, do you do anything with the menus? Is there any food you would never serve, or?
Oh, I don't have any never, If you say never, then next week is the first opportunity to break that rule.
A hot dog from Coney Island is okay.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't know if I would serve that to, like, the Queen of England, but... Uh-huh.
Would I, as a receiver, know you were designing it, and so it would entice me to go?
I don't believe in putting my name. I'm asked sometimes if the organization could put my name on. I don't love that because I kind of feel like the focal point should be on the organization, but I do feel that the invitation, if your party is your feature film, then the invitation is the movie trailer. And so the invitation, like a good movie trailer, should entice you to want to go see the movie. And so we do spend a lot of time on making an invitation really special so that when things come in the mail and you have that stack of junk, the thing that rises to the top is the cool invitation. And maybe you might infer that we did the invitation and that might want you to go, which would be very flattering, but thank you.
I would be more inclined to go to the one that I knew you were designing.
Right.
It would be more, if I'm going to spend $500, or
Right.
whatever.
Well, sing that from the rooftops. I think that every clue, the invitation being the start, should be the thing that sets the tone. So, we spend a lot of time, as I said earlier, anything that is a convention, how do we make it different? How do we make it special? And, that could be the escort card, that could be the invitation, that could be what's on the table, that could be what the table is itself, or what happens at the event. But those are the details that people remember, and those are the things that people file away and they keep because, they were meaningful to them. So I always am a believer that everything, and I say this a lot to my clients, everything has the propensity to be awful or great. So it's just about how you do it. I mean, anything could be terrible, anything could be wonderful. So it's how you do it that makes it really special, and I think that that can be applied to, any endeavor, really.
So, have you been doing the Robin Hood Foundation since the beginning?
No. It's actually 25 years old this year, but I've probably done it for like 11 of those years.
Even though it's for 200 people, it's usually impossible to get a ticket by the time. And so I'm wondering if you've had anything, I mean, it wasn't maybe in the beginning, but now everybody knows they're going to be totally
Yeah.
blown away. So it's
Well,
sold out.
I can help you get a ticket. I mean, they're not going to say no to money. So, no, and 11 years ago, it wasn't 4,000 people. Maybe it was 2,000 people. I mean, it's definitely grown, and it's grown to a place where, there's a stopping point, too, because, it's not even space. There's space, but it's really hard from a catering perspective to serve 4,000 people in a gracious way. I mean, people are spending, the tables, the highest end tables at that fundraiser go for $250,000. And although everybody says that they're really not there for the food, well, they're not there to sing the praises when it's great, but they're really there to amplify when it's terrible. So, there is a certain place where the food service can only get so good. And part of it is just the wait staff. We have about 600 waiters for it. And you reach a certain point where it's like warm bodies off the street. It's a big town, there's a lot of caterers, there's a lot of events going on, but it's really hard to get that many polished, incredible people that are used to working together as a team really often because there aren't any other opportunities to try that out. So for a lot of these people, they're only working on it that one time of year. The other thing is that spatially, we have to work really hard at figuring out how to organize the room so that people don't get lost. And that may seem like kind of a weird thing, but it's really big. So not only do the guests get lost, but the waiters get lost. So you can imagine, they go to your table, you ask them for a Diet Coke. Then they go to get that Diet Coke, and they actually had to walk about 15 or 20 minutes to the bar. And that's if they didn't get lost. And then they have to walk back. So for you, you had the feeling that the service was terrible, when in fact they were really working hard to really do exactly what they needed to do. They just, the combination of getting lost and it being a long journey anyway and all that stuff. So the long answer is we've kind of cut it off at a certain point because the service really starts to go down after that. So.
In your experience, how important it is your entertainment with the decor and the fun of the party? What would you?
I think it's important.
And would you be part of it?
Oh yes, I mean that's. Yeah, I mean every aspect of what goes on the event we're spearheading. So. There are times where celebrity entertainment is important to somebody, and there are times where I dissuade that. Well, sometimes it's hated, and sometimes I might say, okay, for what your goals are, not even what your finances are, but for what your goals are, I'd rather keep the spotlight on X, because that's what this is about. The minute you add Madonna to the roster, to the evening, it's all about Madonna. And sometimes you need that. And sometimes that's actually hurting what your goals are. And sometimes, there might be a group of people that think it's really exciting to have Madonna, but it actually chips away at what the purpose of the evening was, or the feeling that, wow, I bought this ticket and all this money actually went to Madonna. So, there's a fine balancing act to all of that, but I think even if it's, a lone violinist that you found on the street corner that's incredibly talented, like that kind of talent and that kind of specialness is absolutely essential no matter what the evening is. So, anybody have any other questions?
How hands-on are you in the creation of the installations and the artwork in the events?
I'm really hands-on. I'm there the whole time to my own detriment.
Thank you, Fana. Good point. Thank you,
all for
David.
coming. Thank you.